Imagine reaching into a dusty jar of loose change tucked away in the back of a kitchen drawer. Pennies so ordinary, you'd barely give them a second glance. Now imagine one of those coins is worth thousands. Not hundreds, thousands. It sounds like something out of a coin collector's daydream, but these stories are real. Today, we're digging into the kind of pennies that can turn an old cigar box or forgotten coin album into a hidden treasure chest. We're talking about coins that look like everyday pocket change until you know what to look for. And our first stop? A penny from the late 90s that packs a surprising punch, the 1997 USA 1 cent. Now, 1997 wasn't exactly a landmark year for the Lincoln penny. The design had been largely unchanged since 1959. Lincoln's bust on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But something rare happened during that year's production run. A small number of 1997 Lincoln cents were struck off-center, double die, or even with broad strikes, making them highly desirable error coins among seasoned collectors. In a world where billions of pennies are minted annually, a production error is like nature slipping up just once. And that slip can turn a 1-cent coin into a collector's gem. One of the most prized errors from 1997 is the double die obverse. It's subtle but unmistakable when you know what to look for. Doubling is typically visible on the words "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," sometimes even the date. This doubling occurs when the die, the stamp that impresses the image onto the coin, shifts slightly between strikes, causing a shadowy, doubled appearance. And since these mistakes are almost never caught before the coins are circulated, many of them ended up in people's pockets without anyone noticing for decades. As for value, while a standard circulated 1997 penny is still worth, well, 1 cent, a clean double die, or a high-grade off-center strike can fetch anywhere from $50 to over $1,500, depending on the severity of the error and the coin's condition. A pristine, uncirculated example with sharp doubling can be auctioned for even more, especially if it's been professionally graded by PCGS or NGC. In fact, one particularly bold 1997 off-center strike, penny graded a mess. 66 red recently sold for just over $1,800. A reminder that condition and rarity go hand in hand when it comes to market value. Here's a fun twist. Some of the 1997 era pennies weren't discovered until collectors started combing through their spare change years later. That's right, these weren't coins tucked away in mint sets. They were out in circulation, quietly traveling from vending machines to coffee shop tip jars to glove compartments, completely under the radar. It wasn't until a sharp-eyed hobbyist spotted the odd doubling under a loop that the frenzy began. That's part of the allure. These aren't showcase coins minted for collectors. They're rogue survivors, hiding in plain sight. Even more intriguing, many 1997 pennies exhibit die cracks and cuts, raised bumps or breaks on the coin surface caused by failing dies. While less dramatic than a double die, these errors still draw attention, especially when they're large or oddly shaped. Some collectors even nickname the coins like the Spider Crack or the Mountain Cut, and those quirky monikers sometimes help increase their notoriety and price. Whether you're a veteran numismatist or someone who just can't help checking every penny they come across, the 1997 Lincoln cent proves one thing. Rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about the unusual, the overlooked, the factory fluke that turns a humble copper coin into a 5-star collectible. And with the sheer volume of these pennies minted, over 4.6 billion that year, the odds may be slim, but the potential reward is well worth the hunt. Next up, we're dialing it back to the 80s, an era of bold styles, big changes, and one very surprising penny that's become a silent superstar in the collector world. Let's talk about the 1984 USA 1 cent. In 2003, the Lincoln penny wasn't making headlines, nor was it expected to. It was just doing its job, quietly, efficiently, and in staggering quantities. Over 7 billion pennies were struck that year. To most people, the 2003 USA 1 cent was just another copper-colored coin, sliding into parking meters, snack machines, and tip jars. But for collectors paying attention, 2003 turned out to be a surprisingly significant year, especially for those who know the value of condition, color, and mint origin. First, let's start with the basics. Like other Lincoln Memorial cents from 1959 to 2008, the 2003 penny features Lincoln's familiar profile on the obverse and the iconic memorial on the reverse. But in 2003, something subtle caught collectors' attention. An unusually high number of exceptionally well-struck examples emerged from the Denver Mint. These coins showed razor-sharp detail, strong luster, and excellent eye appeal. For those in the grading game, it was a golden opportunity to chase high-grade specimens that could command a serious premium in the right market. And here's where it gets interesting. The 2003 D. Lincoln cent has become one of the most sought-after modern pennies in top condition. While it's still worth just 1 cent in circulation, pristine examples graded MS 69 red, a near-flawless grade, have sold for $600 to over $1,000 at auction. That might seem wild for a coin that's only 2 decades old and has no obvious errors, but it makes perfect sense when you understand how tight the margins are at the top of the grading scale. There just aren't many coins that survive the minting process, packaging, and handling without picking up a single distracting blemish. In fact, PCGS has certified only a tiny handful of 2003 D. Lincoln cents at MS 69 red. Most coins, even fresh out of mint rolls or bank bags, cap out at MS 66 or MS 67 due to minor flaws, weak strikes, or dull surfaces. That makes top pop coins from this year incredibly desirable for registry set collectors, those competitive collectors who build complete sets of coins in the highest possible grades. But that's not the only story behind the 2003 penny. A limited number of error coins also slipped through the cracks. These include struck-through grease errors, which cause parts of the design to vanish or look melted, and off-center strikes, which are always eye-catching and collectible. While not as dramatic or valuable as older error coins, a bold off-center 2003 penny can still bring in $50 to $200, especially if it's uncirculated and graded. Interestingly, the 2003 penny also marked a kind of calm before the storm. Just 2 years later, in 2005, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with new designs and later launched the 4-design Lincoln Bicentennial Cent series in 2009. But in 2003, the Lincoln Memorial Reverse was still the standard, and that gives this year's coin a sort of bookend charm for collectors focused on the classic Memorial era. Color plays a huge role here too. As with other Lincoln cents, the 2003 issue is graded not just on its strike, but on its color designation: brown BN, red brown, RB, or full red RD. That full red shine, with no spotting or fading, is the gold standard. It signals that the coin has never spent a day in circulation and has been preserved almost perfectly since the day it left the mint. So while the 2003 USA 1 cent might not be the flashiest or most talked about coin in the numismatic world, it serves as a powerful reminder that rarity isn't always about errors or age. Sometimes it's about perfection and how few coins ever achieve it. So next time you come across a penny, whether it's sitting in a drawer or jingling in your pocket, give it a second look. You never know what story it might tell or what it might be worth. All right, let's rewind the clock to 1984. Reagan was in the White House, MTV was still playing music videos, and the Lincoln penny was quietly rolling off the presses in the billions. On the surface, the 1984 USA 1 cent looks like your standard fare. Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, just like millions of others from the era. But here's the thing. Not all 1984 pennies are created equal. Some of them carry a striking error that slipped past the mint's quality control, making them one of the most desirable Lincoln cent from the decade. We're talking about the famous 1984 double-ear Lincoln cent. That's right, double ear. It's exactly what it sounds like. An extra, clearly defined earlobe appears just beneath Lincoln's actual ear. The result? It looks like Honest Abe is sporting an extra ear, or at least a ghostly shadow of one. And it's not just a tiny blip. You don't need magnification to spot it. Once you know what to look for, it stands out like a sore thumb. The origin of this error comes down to a misaligned hubbing process. Basically, the coin die was struck more than once in slightly different positions during its creation, and that extra strike left behind a doubled image. Now, The mint did correct this error quickly, but not before thousands of these double-ear pennies made their way into circulation. That limited window is what makes them rare and valuable today. In terms of price, these coins have real muscle in the market. A lightly circulated example might fetch anywhere from $100 to $300, depending on how visible the doubling is. But high-grade, uncirculated specimens, especially those graded MS 65 red or higher, can command $1,000 to $3,000 or more. One particularly sharp MS 67 RD example sold at auction for just over $6,000. Not bad for a coin that originally cost 1 cent. And here's something most casual collectors miss. There are plenty of fake double-ear pennies floating around online. Some are real 1984 cents with post-mint damage. Others are outright counterfeits made to trick new collectors. That's why authentication and professional grading are so crucial if you think you've found one. PCGS and NGC have both certified dozens of these coins, and the demand is still steady, especially among Lincoln Cent enthusiasts. Now, let's not forget the more subtle variations of the 1984 penny. Some collectors seek out examples with die cracks, die chips, or struck through grease errors that affect details in the lettering or Lincoln's face. While those aren't worth thousands, they can still sell for a decent premium, especially when grouped with other 80s minting oddities. There's also the condition factor to consider. Like many pennies from this era, the 1984 Lincoln Cent is prone to toning, fading, or surface spots from circulation. That's why so much of the coin's value hinges on eye appeal and color. The grading system classifies them as red, RD, red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, and unsurprisingly, bright red, uncirculated examples are what investors and serious collectors chase hardest. The best part? These coins were so widely distributed that it's entirely possible one might still be hiding in a collection, a shoebox, or a family piggy bank. It's the kind of discovery that gives even seasoned collectors a thrill. Flipping a penny over and noticing Lincoln's ghostly second ear staring back at you. So, while the 1984 USA 1 cent might seem like a throwaway coin to most people, to collectors in the know, it's a small copper jackpot, a relic from an era when minting errors were more common and quality control wasn't quite as precise as it is today. Now, fast forward a few decades and the US Mint had cleaned up its act, or so they thought. Because in the 21st century, even with cutting-edge tech and stricter protocols, a few slip-ups still managed to sneak through. And one of the most surprising modern-day penny anomalies? That came in 2017. Let's take a look. By 2017, you'd think the US Mint had coin production down to a science. With advanced machinery, digital imaging, and quality control processes tighter than ever, major minting errors were supposed to be a thing of the past. But as collectors know all too well, even in the age of automation, mistakes still happen. And when they do, they can create some of the most fascinating and valuable coins of the modern era. Case in point, the 2017 USA 1 cent. Now, most folks remember 2017 as the year the US Mint introduced a new set of P mint mark pennies, a first in the coin's long history. For more than a century, pennies produced at the Philadelphia Mint had no mint mark at all. But in honor of the Mint's 225th anniversary, the 2017 Lincoln Cent was struck with a small P under the date. That might sound like a tiny detail, but it marked a huge departure from tradition and sparked immediate interest from collectors. This special mint mark wasn't a production error. It was intentional, but its one-year-only appearance instantly made these pennies collectible. And because many people didn't know about the change, the vast majority of 2017, P pennies were casually spent, tossed in jars, or lost in couch cushions. Finding a clean, uncirculated example today is still relatively easy, but high-grade specimens in MS 68 red or higher are getting harder to come by, and auction results have started reflecting that growing demand. But that's not all. 2017 also brought some unexpected surprises. A small number of 2017 Lincoln Cents were struck on zinc planchets with defects, causing weak strikes, missing design elements, or strange surface textures. One of the most talked about examples? A 2017 penny with missing lettering on the obverse, caused by a fill die error. The words "In God We Trust" were partially or completely missing, something that immediately caught collectors' eyes. Even more impressive were the off-center strikes and misaligned dies that showed up in 2017. These are the kinds of errors that get pulse rates up at coin shows. A 2017 penny with a dramatic off-center strike, say 50% or more, can easily sell for $100 to $400, especially if it's in excellent condition. The more dramatic and unusual the error, the higher the value. In the auction scene, some truly pristine 2017 P-cents in mint state 68 red have crossed the block for $700 to $1,200. And while that might not sound earth-shattering compared to older rarities, remember, this is a modern coin that cost 1 cent to produce. The appreciation potential is especially intriguing for collectors who see this as a crossover between traditional numismatics and more modern, short-term investing. Here's something else that makes the 2017 cent unique. It represents a kind of transitional moment in U.S. coinage. It was the first and only time Philadelphia's mint mark appeared on a penny, and then it was gone. Just like that. In 2018, the mint quietly reverted back to the old no mint mark standard for Philly pennies, making the 2017 issue a historical one-off. That alone gives it a kind of built-in scarcity, even though over 4 billion were minted. And yet, despite that massive number, the vast majority of these pennies are now sitting in circulation, banged up from years of use. It's the high-end examples, the coins that were pulled early, stored properly, and graded professionally. They're seeing the biggest surge in value. And if you're lucky enough to stumble upon a 2017 P penny with an error, unusual toning, or striking die flaws, you might just have a sleeper hit on your hands. So whether you're in it for the history, the hunt, or the potential profit, the 2017 USA 1 cent proves that even in our digital, tech-driven age, the humble penny still has stories to tell and value to deliver. Now, before we wrap up, let's jump back just a little to the early 2000s, because in 2003, something subtle but powerful happened with the Lincoln penny. And as we'll see, even modern coins with no visible errors can become hot items under just the right conditions. Let's get into it.